Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good your day. I'm Bennett Sung. I am the VP of Marketing with Fair Now. I'm very excited to introduce the official partnership between Zertia, a AI certification expert, and Fair Now, an AI governance software and technology solution. And really, our goal here is to really help every organizations, both AI developers and AI deployers, understand the ISO 42001 certification process better, and how that's best achieved through an AI governance approach. So before we get started, we'll just a little housekeeping first. This will be available for on-demand streaming. So and then secondly, we will be using some innovative technology to gain a pulse check of folks and their opinions on some of the polling questions. So we'll have 3 polling questions. And then we'll get right into the first part of today's conversation. And that's really going to be focused on understanding what the ISO 42001 certification looks like from the start of pre-audit all the way through certification. And then we'll jump right into what really is the highlight of today, and that's my conversations with Jose and Guru in an executive fireside chat. And the intention is that this will be a very interactive engagement. So feel free in the comments section to add any questions that you may have. But certainly there's a lot to cover today. So let's go ahead and get started with one of our polling questions. And so we will start with polling question number 1. We're interested to really understand what are your biggest challenges when it comes to AI. So all you need to do is go ahead and either go through the URL, slido.com, and enter in the code, or you can simply take a snap of the QR code, and hopefully we'll get to see some engagement on the feedback. I should probably do that, but so again, the question is, what are your biggest challenges? Lack of internal expertise or talent, integrating AI into existing systems and workflows, ensuring quality and privacy, risk management and ethical concerns, understanding and complying with AI regulations, demonstrating trust and compliance to clients and partners, and how does that fit into how does AI fit into your strategy? Let's see if there are any results. If not, we can certainly have Matteo and Guru comment on what they feel, what they're hearing out in the market about some of the biggest challenges when it comes to AI. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Integrating AI into existing systems and workflows. Whoa, look at the real time. Very interesting. Any comments, Matteo and Guru, about the feedback that we just have seen in this particular poll in terms of the biggest challenges? Is this what you're hearing and seeing out there in the market? Is this pretty common, or is there some, additional kind of, thoughts behind the reaction or your reactions to this?
Yeah, I would say, look, we've done this poll several times. There's also some market research out there. The top 2 challenges that we are seeing are exactly what's in here. One is around the risk management and understanding compliance with regulations. So managing risk, complying with regulations. We see that up here at number 1 and number 4. And then the other is figuring out how to incorporate and integrate AI into their existing technology, systems, workflow, how to make it all work together.
Yeah.
And that's clearly what you're seeing here at the top of the list. So really interesting.
Yeah, exactly the same on my side. I think that if you are more in Europe, probably there is a more concern about the regulations, which will be coming over in the next few months, and also the how to integrate into existing systems.
Okay.
So similar. I think that this is because we are early stages. But in a couple of years, everything will be moving towards to privacy and to scale up and so on. But as of today, the concern is basically the same. Even in Europe, probably the everything regarding regulation will be even more than 50%.
Great. Let's check out let's get some feedback from the audience on the next polling question. What is your company's role in the AI ecosystem? So specifically, we're interested to hear from you about your organization and whether or not you're building and training your own AI models. Are you deploying what we call an AI developer, or are we deploying third-party AI tools? Or are you an organization that does both? You're assessing your AI strategy, or we don't do any AI? We'll take a little pause, let folks be able to scan, and then we will highlight the results. Looks like everybody's saying that they are primarily a deployer of AI. Oh, some people don't do any. Okay.
This is consistent with what we're seeing out there, where most organizations are not necessarily building their own AI. They're leveraging a lot of third-party AI tools, products, etc. Some of them may be enhancing those, fine-tuning those, etc. But there's an incredible kind of vendor value chain when it comes to AI, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Here, I will discriminate between the new and the old AI, right? So the new AI that came from ChatGPT basically create a new industry. And I think that this question may have a bit of a bias on the new AI compared with the old one. I come from banking. We have in banking, they have been using AI for the last 30 years, probably with another name, business intelligence, machine learning, and many other names. But it has a bias on the new AI and all these new platforms. So not really algorithms or really models that you embed in your technology, but using others' technology, assuming they're the same AI, but it's different.
Right. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for giving us a pulse check as to kind of where the state of your organization is in the development and the utilization of AI, and some of your concerns today. And as Mateo had mentioned, obviously, every month, every year, I think this is changing at such a rapid pace that the changes are these dynamic changes are certainly going to see itself unfold when it comes to organizations kind of just really understanding, what are the concerns that they have. Obviously, the top ones right now are risk and regulations, which, as Guru had pointed out, very common in our market research. And as we've run this poll multiple times, we see very consistent results here. So let's get into kind of the first half of today's conversation, and that is really introducing everyone to the notion of the customer journey. So what is the customer journey from pre-audit through to certification? So obviously, like many things, there's a lot of work that goes into ISO certifications. And as if you've done any variation of standards, whether it's 27001 and such, there are many aspects of the process to be understood. And our goal here is to obviously help you understand the various stages, how to get prepared faster and more efficiently, so that the stage 1 and stage 2 processes of certification are much more streamlined and more efficient. So let's go ahead and get started here in terms of like just understanding what are some best practices of getting prepared for a ISO 42201 certification. Guru?
Yeah, thank you, Bennett. This is, I think, a timely conversation. We are starting to get a lot of customers coming to us with questions and asking for help around ISO 42001. For those of you who are familiar with other certifications like ISO 27001, SOC 2, etc., those certifications have been around for a long, long time, right? And so because of that, 10, 15, 20 years. And because of that, they're very standardized and it's much more of a checklist. So it's very clear, hey, I just need to go down this checklist and kind of execute these things. ISO 42001 is very new, if I'm not mistaken, just as of last year, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing that's already different and why a lot of companies are confused about, hey, what do I do here? How do I execute this? What, can I already leverage what I've done for ISO 27001? Is it completely different? All these things. So we're going to address some of these questions today, but just know, again, you're not alone if you're confused by ISO 42001 and what it means. The second thing I'll say is it's also different in another way. It's much more a guiding a set of guidelines as opposed to very prescriptive tactical actions. And that's because AI governance is just fundamentally different than InfoSec governance, right? It's not possible for a global standard to prescribe certain things at the industry and even organizational level. And I'll talk about that in a second. Those things at the end of the day are going to be your decisions about how you want to proceed. Okay, so let's delve into this a little bit in terms of the audit prep. And this is something FairNow helps with. And this is, again, where we partner with Zertia, who comes in and does all of the actual audit itself, right? And so we help with the audit prep. Zertia executes the audit. And so we have a technology platform that helps with the audit prep. So in terms of the ISO 42001, I would probably split it into two buckets. One is what you need to do at the organizational level, and then what do you need to do for each AI application that you have in your organization. So at the organizational level, there's two buckets of things that you're going to want to do. One is policies, having policies at the organizational level. Some examples of policies include, what is your policy around transparency of the AI? How transparent are you with different stakeholders, with customers, with employees, with board members, with others, about where you use AI, how you use AI, etc. Right? Another example of a policy is your own kind of AI policy, your ethics policy. How do you think about using AI? When do you use AI? When do you think about using AI from vendors? What are your red lines or points where you will not use AI, right? And so just having those principles and guidelines laid out around the ethics and the use of AI is going to be another thing that you're going to be expected to have. So there are a bunch of these policies you're going to want to have at the organizational level. And again, no certifying body is going to tell you exactly what your policy has to be. Those are things you're going to have to develop organically in your organization, depending on the values and culture of your company. Second, at the organizational level, you're going to have to develop roles and responsibilities and a workflow for processing your governance, right? AI models are a life cycle from proposal to testing and development to deployment to retirement, right? And so what is your process for managing that workflow? Where are humans involved in reviewing the risks, in evaluating the performance, in understanding is it doing what it's intended to be doing, right? All along the way. And so that workflow becomes very important, and humans have to be assigned roles and responsibilities along the way. Some examples of roles include who is reviewing the risks of the AI applications, who's ultimately accountable for AI and if it makes mistakes, et cetera, right? So you want to develop a framework internally. Again, we guide companies on best practices around this framework. Who are the different stakeholders that need to be involved, and so on and so forth. But you want to be able to have a workflow and roles and responsibilities for understanding, for defining governance. So that's what you want to do at the organizational level. Now, for each application, there's two buckets of things you need to do. First and foremost, what I tell people, know what you have. So many organizations don't even know all the AI that they have in their organization, right? What AI applications do they have? Who's using it? How are they using it? For what purposes? So on and so forth. So step one, get your arms around that. Inventory your AI applications, collect the metadata, understand what AI is being used for, and assess the risks. And again, this is all stuff that our platform automatically helps with, right? Once you have your arms around that, then what you need to be able to do is create the right documentation, right? Is your AI, if it needs to be tested for bias, perform the bias testing and create the bias report. If you need to do an impact assessment, I think Jose Mateo will talk about this later. What's an impact assessment? If you need to create an impact assessment for each application, you'll need to create that. So there's a set of documents that you'll need to create to demonstrate that you know what the risks are, how you've mitigated those risks, you've done testing, here are the results of the tests, so on and so forth. And all that documentation becomes part of your audit trail that will be evaluated by our partner Zertia. And so again, just to summarize very quickly, the audit prep requires things at the organizational level, where you need to have policies and then roles and responsibilities as part of a workflow. And then you need to do things at the application level, including inventorying, risk assessment, and doing the documentation for the audit trail. Let me pause there and hand it over to Jose.
Then you need to perform the audit. The audit can be performed either internally by the organization or externally, as we do at Zertia. One important thing is that if a company such as Zertia performs the audit, we cannot do the certification. Again, it's very relevant to understand that there should not be conflict of interest in the process. Okay, that's why FairNow finish in one step, and Zertia takes from there onwards, understanding that we cannot do both audit and certification at the same time. If we're auditors, we cannot certify. If we're certifiers, we cannot audit, right? So that's the first thing. But going to this graph, we have two stages of audit. The first stage is basically when the auditor needs to really understand all the AI-related policies, procedures, and risk assessments are fully documented, complete, and aligned with the standard. And that's why having or not having an AI compliance platform makes the difference. So having or not having, for example, a FairNow makes or not makes a difference. Because having all these documents in a single place, well documented, or having them split throughout the organization with not a clear centralization process makes a total difference. For example, an audit can take between 3 weeks if you're using an AI audit platform, or it can take even 6 months if you're not. Okay. So that's the first thing. That's the first stage, to really understand that everything is fully documented, complete, and aligned with the standard. The second step, again, that can be made either by an internal auditor of the corporate or by an external auditor such as us, is basically to evaluate that the implementation and effectiveness of the organization management system is well delivered. This is carried through on-site assessments. This is carried through interviews with key personnel. We have to review records, and we have to really understand and evaluate if the AI governance really works. Again, it has nothing to do whether if you have to interview tens or dozens of people, or if everything is in an AI readiness platform. Okay, the speed and the difference that we can get between one or other method is completely different. Once the audit is completed, then we can move to the certification process. The certification process, which should be done by a certification body, such as Zertia, we basically certify that the process is ready and it fully aligns with the 4201 certification. The process is basically, we do a first certification process for 1 year, which basically takes 60% of the work, and then we recertify for another 2 years. So we basically take back the certification of the first year and review if there is consistency in between what we saw that happened on the second and the third year. So that's basically the stage 1 and 2 on the audit, and then the certification part on my side.
Great. Well, awesome. So this has been a great kind of introduction to the, again, journey from pre-audit to certification, and then obviously the renewal, the continued certification process after year 1 into year 2 and 3, and then some. And so hopefully you all kind of have a good sense of what to expect as you start to plan for your ISO 42001 certification. So that kind of leads nicely into kind of the next polling question I'd love to get feedback on. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that is going to look like. And let's bring it up on stage. So here we are. What is the strongest reason to implement AI compliance framework? Options: to meet regulatory requirements, to validate the effectiveness of internal controls, to drive revenue growth and attract new customers, to build trust with existing clients. And if you have other reasons for AI compliance, put them in the comments section inside your live stream. So let's go ahead and wait for the results to come in, and then we'll kind of review them and get some comments from Guru and Jose. Okay, they start coming in. I love this real-time polling. So why don't we get some immediate feedback from Guru and Jose about the reaction, about the feedback on why organizations, deployers, or developers are implementing AI compliance framework?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's one part of this that's surprising and one that's not surprising. So the first part that's not surprising is the top two that add up to 100% here is really around the top line, right? Mm-hmm. Building trust with current customers or trying to build trust with prospects and new customers. That is something we hear all the time, right? Trust is so important. And the number one impediment to selling AI solutions or selling your solutions right now is concern around the AI. And so if there's a way that you can demonstrate that you have a process, you have controls, you are certified, you have risk management practices in place, anything that you can show to build that trust and that comfort is a huge deal. And we'll talk about that later. And so I'm not at all surprised to see that at the top. I am a little surprised to see no one citing kind of regulatory requirements or just kind of establishing this for risk management purposes, right? At the end of the day, you don't want to appear on the front page of New York Times. You don't want to be caught in uncompromising situations with your AI or lawsuits around your AI. And so that is something we hear often, where companies just don't want to get caught in lawsuits. They don't want to be cited as bad actors. And so that kind of business risk also is something that often comes up. So I'm surprised to see that one isn't here. But yeah, those are my reactions.
Same on my front. For me, first thing is that, again, we are in the early stage of AI. So people is basically seeking for compliance to gather more customers. Mm-hmm. That's clear. Yeah. But here, the regulatory requirements are key. Having a good AI compliance platform or a certification doesn't avoid you not complying with regulations at all. But it helps you decreasing the fact that you may not be litigated or sued. Okay? Because you are demonstrating that you are doing your max efforts in doing everything correctly, right? That's key here. That's key here. I know many companies that has to close because they were sued by a customer or the customer of your customer.
That's right.
So the problem of regulations is that you don't need to face. Your problem is not being sued by your customer. The problem is that you can be sued by all the customer chain, from you towards the customer of your customer and the customer of the customer of your customer, right? Everything goes down the chain into you as an AI provider, in case you are an AI provider. So for me, to have this combination of an AI readiness platform, in this case, Ferna, and to be certified that what you have really meets with the global standards is key to avoid potential suit. Because in the end, as of today, in the very early stage of AI, we cannot ensure that our AI doesn't get to have hallucinations. We cannot ensure that. Even being certified, we can ensure that. So as much as you generate trust moment, combining AI compliance plus certification, you can be sued and you cannot defend yourself. It's impossible.
Just to build off of something Jose said that's important here, if you have an internal AI governance process, a program, you will get the benefit of the doubt. And if you don't, you won't get the benefit of the doubt. And this is very important, right? Things will sometimes go wrong. That's just the nature of technology, and that's even more so with AI. We cannot you cannot make sure it is perfect 100% of the time, right? Things will sometimes go wrong. But if you have a governance program that is trying its best to manage risks, regulators, customers, and others will give you the benefit of the doubt. And that's very, very important in this age of AI, as we will see. So keep that in mind.
Excellent. So we're going to get into the fun part of the conversation, but super educational as well. So really kind of what we're going to cover is a series of couple questions that we had promised the audience we would answer. And then we'll get into some additional questions that both Guru and Mateo wanted to bring to the forefront. But before we each of them get started in addressing this particular question, I would love for both Mateo and Guru to just do a quick background on themselves as well as their organizations and what they do. So at least we give a little bit more context before we get back into kind of the Q&A side. So Mateo, do you want to give kind of just introduce yourself officially and certainly some of the information about a little background on Zertia?
Yeah, sure. I've been working in highly regulated businesses all my life. I have 25 plus years of experience in multinationals, either in telecom and in banking. I've lived in Spain, I've lived in China, lived in the US, lived in Brazil. So and again, always in highly regulated businesses, and even leading regulation in, for example, in payments within Santander Bank, which was the bank I spent 2/3 of my corporate life. Zertia was born last year. In 2023, after I understood, because of my previous years as head of regulations, that there is a huge gap when talking about data and talking about AI in the market. Let's understand that our competitors, big certification companies, were born 200 years ago after the industrial revolution. So the top 10 companies in certification in the world has more than 150 years. It's the industry with the oldest number of companies still alive ever in the world. They were born to certify factories, and in my point of view, they still act the same way as they did 200 years ago. So very human-centric, not much technology on-site. And that's something that we want to disrupt, moving from on-site to remote, moving from low technology usage to high technology, and moving from old, like myself, or probably like Guru, old guys, to young and talented and well-trained auditors, in order to basically make our customers' life easier. That's why Zertia was born, and that's why we are working very hard. We are based in the US and also in Europe, so that we have the best of the two worlds. So the AI. Leadership of the US and the regulation leadership of Europe, both things combined, and also with great partners as Ferna.
Great.
Thank you.
Guru, why don't you do a background on yourself and obviously FairNow, and kind of also what the meaning of the partnership between Zertia and FairNow mean for both parties.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Guru Sethupathi. I'm founder and CEO of FairNow. I've spent more than 25 years in the AI space across different areas. I don't have as wonderful a geographic footprint as Jose has had, but I have spent time, the first decade of my career, doing academic research on AI itself. I spent the last dozen years in corporate at McKinsey and Capital One, where I was an executive leading AI and AI governance. And so I'm quite familiar with this topic, very similar to Jose in that sense, at the intersection of AI in regulated domains, right? So I'm very familiar with the use of AI in financial services, in HR, and just other regulated domains. Where FairNow was born was through my experiences at Capital One, right? So understanding kind of the importance of governance. And we're going to talk about this more very, very soon. But why governance is important and how to execute governance, but how to simplify governance. Here's the thing. If you do governance manually, it can become very, very, very painful. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of person hours, and it become quite time consuming. And so what we wanted to do was we believed in the following hypothesis, that AI was going to be everywhere, that AI governance was going to be absolutely necessary, and that AI governance is complicated and needs to be simplified. And so that's how FairNow was born. We're born to essentially build a product and a technology that simplifies governance for you, that provides automations and intelligence that really make it as simple as possible so that you can have governance to build that trust, and then you can go do the fun stuff and build AI, use AI, and go win the world. So that's our job, is to simplify AI governance for you. Why this partnership is special and important is because we work together to create a much more seamless process for our customers to get certified, because otherwise certification can be quite laborious, right? So between our platform and Zertia's certification process, the process gets very, very simplified for our customers. And that's really the benefit of this platform for our customers.
Great.
Yeah, again, as I was telling before, moving from 6 months certification into 3 weeks, 1 month, it also bears cost. So being with the customer for 6 months and being with the customer for 1 month has nothing to do in terms of the effort that I, as a provider, needs to put on the table for a customer.
Yeah.
Working with us and Zertia together can save you months of time. That's right.
It definitely feels the trend is to really bring the best of technology, the best of service into this process of ISO 42001 certification. So that's kind of, we have a few questions that we wanted to just cover, because again, we had promised the audience that we would talk about these next 4 questions, and then we'll jump into some of the questions that are really close to the heart of both Matteo and Guru. So these next questions. So what legacy do you want to leave in the AI ecosystem? Who wants to take that first?
I'll go first. Look, the legacy that myself and FairNow want to leave in the AI ecosystem is the concept of smart AI governance, right? This, I think, is going to be a really, really important concept. This is the legacy we want to leave. Look, smart AI governance, it doesn't roll off the tongue. It's not as sexy as AI itself, but it is a huge, huge enabler of AI because it lowers your risk, it builds trust, it increases adoption, and it does it efficiently, right? And so companies who do smart AI governance will be the winners in the AI world over the next few years. It's not necessarily going to be the ones who have the most data scientists necessarily, right? Because a lot of the AI is going to come from vendors. But the companies that do smart AI governance are going to win.
Yeah.
So just very quickly, what is smart AI governance? First of all, as we've already discussed, AI governance itself is a process that focuses attention on AI risk management. And that's the key, right? Most of governance itself is not being perfect, but it's about having a process in place. And having a process in place builds trust. That's the thing, right? If you have a process in place, your customers, your regulators, your employees, your board know that someone is paying attention to this. And at the end of the day, that's what matters, attention, paying attention to what AI is doing, right? Managing these AI systems, managing the risk, understanding if something goes wrong, someone's accountable for it and they can fix it. All of that is part of good governance. And that calms people's concerns, their fears, and it builds trust. So that's what AI governance is. It's that process. It's that process that you have in place to manage the risk. What is smart AI governance? Smart AI governance is simply setting up governance in a way that is efficient, risk triaged, which I'll talk about later, and automated where possible. If you don't automate aspects of AI governance, you're going to drown in process and documentation and reviews, etc. So it's important to have humans in the loop, but you don't want humans doing everything. So we help, and that's where we're very involved. We're helping automate many aspects of governance, right? So make sure you're doing just as much governance as you need. Don't do governance on all your applications. Focus your governance on the medium risk and high risk applications. Don't do all the steps manually. Make sure you have automation involved. Make sure you have simplification involved, right? That's the second part of smart AI governance, is making sure you're doing it as efficiently as possible. Because if you don't, you're gonna get bogged down in too much work.
Yeah.
Okay, on our side, our ultimate goal is to become part of this invisible infrastructure that makes, or that try to make AI growth in a safe way, right? So just as TCP/IP enable the internet, or the counted standards made financial systems trustworthy, we want to be the ones to help lay down the rules that make AI scalable and safe. How? For example, we are working with the USA IMSIPS committee that provides the US government with a vision on how to influence the new ISO standards, because the ISO standards on AI has just started with the 4201. We know that ISO is working on 10-year standards that covers more user-specific cases rather than the horizontal understanding on the 2001. We also want to build trust so business regulators and society can rely on systems that make increasingly essential decisions. And we also want to move we want to help certification be considered not as a paperwork or as a stamp, but also as a statement of intent. Okay, so something that really gets deep into the organization on how the organization should be working towards building a safe AI. So making the certification real, not just something that when auditors or certification companies goes into a company, the company really makes in 1 month what they didn't do in 11, right? So we would like to have, my vision is working with companies such as Ferna for the users to be certified every time they use online, they use AI. This should be my view. Not being just one day we do a picture and then we forget until the next surveillance, right? It's to make governance and certifications online, which, by the way, doesn't exist, but we work on that.
Awesome. So this is always an interesting question. I've run this before in terms of, what's one question that about AI that's not being asked that really should be asked starting today? Like, what do you want to leave the audience with? Guru?
Sorry, I'd muted myself. Yeah, I'll take a stab here. So one question we often do hear is, oh gosh, what are the jobs that AI is going to replace, or what are the tasks that AI is going to replace? And a lot of concerns around what jobs or tasks are going to be lost to AI. One question I don't hear from or hear about is what jobs or tasks are going to be created in this new AI world. What are the new jobs in this world, right? And I'm here to say, if you walk away from just a couple of messages, one around smart AI governance, but another is around how AI governance is going to be a huge field over the next few years, absolutely huge, right? Why do I think so? Why do I believe this? Here's why. Here's my prediction. AI. We're already starting to see this now with AI agents coming about. So we moved from kind of machine learning models or predictive models to generative models to now agents that are going to actually perform tasks and be able to reason and plan and execute things. So that's going to enable more automation of activities and process and workflows and so on and so forth. So what does that mean for humans, right? But you still will need humans to manage these AI systems. You're going to have dozens and dozens of AI bots or agents running around your organization. Who's managing that? Who knows what's going on with these agents? Who knows if they're working as intended? Who knows if they're succeeding? Who knows if they're making mistakes? Just like you have people managers who manage teams of people, you're going to have people that need to manage AI systems in your organizations. And what does it mean? You're going to have to guide these systems. You're going to have to embed the values of your organization in these systems. You're going to have to monitor these systems. You're going to have to review these systems. You're going to have to manage the risk around these systems. You're going to have to remediate if something goes wrong. You're going to be accountable ultimately. All of these pieces, that's going to be the increasing role of humans, right? Where the AI starts to do more and more tasks, but the humans are going to be the managers. And so what does that mean? What does management and governance of AI technology systems mean? That is going to be a huge field. And what we're talking about today around governance is one big part of that, but that's going to be the future. So I do encourage folks, as you learn and grow in this AI world, learn about AI, learn about these technologies, but also learn about the governance, because if you do, you're going to be differentiated going forward over the next few years. And this type of job and activity is going to be in high demand.
I have another vision on what society isn't asking yet. It's very nice to get into Amazon or to get into Netflix, and those two platforms basically create your own shopping center or your own cinema store based on what they think you like. But I think that's nice. It helps. But I think we are losing a bit of our capacity to learn new things. If AI is driving us, based on who we are right now, we are going to lose a bit of traction on being another person or developing another way. Okay, because what we see is going to be driven by algorithms that they will drive you to where they think you would like to. So you are not going to have the freedom to really rebuild yourself based on new experiences, because all experiences are driven by algorithms. So the capability to opt out from AI is something that people is not really asking. They're seeing the good things, but not the bad. And I don't mean they're bad, but to have the choice to opt out of being influenced by algorithms is something that people should be asking. And going back to the governance, this is something also that should be in the mind of companies when developing their AI. Does the customer really wants to be driven by AI? Does the customer would like to be driven by algorithms? Or we can give the customer the opt-out to have the full freedom to take the decision they want, and not the decision that everybody's getting into our brains because of the algorithms. This is something for me that it has a bit of ethical element in the future, but I think it's going to be a controversy in the future. It is now. There are some good films on LinkedIn on how algorithms are influencing us, but I think that it's not the same that 3 or 4 companies are influencing us, like the whole companies in the world by using AI will influence everybody, right?
Yeah.
And we are all enough. We come from we don't come from digital. Okay, I'm 50-year-old. When I watch TV when I was young, I have only 2 channels. Right now, my kids can decide what to see every moment. Right. So I think that that's something that will be a concern or a bigger concern in the future.
Yeah. Moving on. So this one is really kind of targeted for Guru in terms of, this notion that AI governance isn't just technical, but it's deeply human. I think we've touched upon a little bit about the importance of the human connection inside of AI and governance itself. And obviously, where possible, the changing landscape of job opportunities that will become available for folks to be better to be managing AI more effectively and such. But how do you align all of the different stakeholders in AI governance, the engineering, the legal, the compliance, the leadership teams around a unified AI ethics and compliance strategy? What are your thoughts behind that? I think you're on mute.
Apologies. Yes, absolutely, Bennett. So look, I'll share some best practices of what leading firms are doing around kind of how they're implementing AI governance programs in their organizations. First is a lot of organizations are starting to develop an AI governance council, right? And the reason for this concept of a council is an acknowledgement that different stakeholders across the organization are important for formulating this governance and executing this governance program, right? As Bennett mentioned here in this question, engineering and technologists are going to play a role. Legal, risk, and compliance are going to play roles. Data scientists are going to play roles. HR is going to play a role. The business leaders and executives are going to play a role. All of them are affected in different ways when you're thinking about kind of the value and the risks of AI, right? And ultimately, that's what every organization is going to have to wrestle with. What's the trade-off here? What's the trade-off between the value I'm getting from these AI systems and the risks? How do I mitigate the risks so that I can get the value? Right. And so wrestling with all that requires kind of expertise and input from different parts of your organization. And so that's where AI governance councils are being formed. That being said, you don't want to be bogged down by council consensus. And so there should be one decision maker at the head of the council, right? Who kind of goes forth in terms of thinking about, okay, what are our policies? What are our guardrails? What are our principles, right? So each organization handles this differently. But there should be one head of that council, and who that is, again, each organization should think about who that should be. But again, having this council is really important, and this council should be responsible for setting certain policies. What is your AI policy of your company? What are the guardrails? Where will you not use AI? How do you think about transparency? How do you think about data privacy? How do you think about ethics? How do you think about roles and responsibilities? Some of the key roles that are important here is one is the concept of a model owner. And these are terms I'm going to bring over from financial services, which is my background. You can call them different things, obviously. But a model owner is ultimately almost like the product owner. Who is the owner of that particular AI product? Right? Whether you bought it from a vendor or you built it internally, someone should be kind of that product owner, that AI owner for that product or that model. Who is ultimately the accountable executive, right? Who's the one finally approving whether an AI gets deployed or not, right? There has to be someone, an executive, who's accountable for those decisions. Who is playing the review process, the risk review process? Is it someone from legal? Is it someone from risk and compliance? Is it someone from the CISO organization? Who's reviewing it and placing their opinion on, is that too risky or not risky, right? So these are 3 very important roles. There's others that you may want to formulate, but these are kind of some of the best practices for getting kind of different stakeholders involved, bought in. Sometimes sales folks are also part of this because they're the ones closest to customers. And what are they hearing from customers? Are they hearing that customers are not trusting the AI? Are they hearing that customers are not comfortable with AI? What are they hearing, right? So sometimes sales folks will be part of this council. So it really depends on the industry, sector, and business you're in. But formulating this council, having a head of this council, having different stakeholders involved, having an accountability framework, and having policies are all ways to get your governance program going.
Awesome. This is a really engaging conversation. I certainly appreciate everyone's time. This is because of the time limit or the time that we have, we'll wrap up this conversation with one last question. And this was really kind of targeted for Jose. But, what I see is we have a plethora of additional questions. Maybe there's a round 2 of this conversation that we can have and get through some of the other questions. But for now, love to kind of close today's conversation with kind of a commentary around AI regulations accelerating across the EU and the US and globally. So, Jose, do you see compliance as a growth engine or as a constraint for innovation? And what do you see? What is the reason why for what are the 2 decisions?
That's a question, and that's what really let's say that's a big discussion in between Europe and the US, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Okay, growth is relevant, but growing without rules, it's very, very, very risky. Do we need to innovate without any control? Remember that who are the ones really investing in innovation? Okay, yes, there are thousands of startups on AI, but the big guys are the Meta, the Google. I mean, we need to have some rules here. I'm European, so we have been surrounded by rules for many, many years. Europe has lost the battle of technology, the battle of military battle, but we are very good in regulation. So the way Europe is regulating in parallel to innovation. That's why every 6 months, the European Commission will reevaluate what is considered high risk, medium risk, and low risk because of the different use cases. So it's not the typical rule of the past that you set the rule and the rule doesn't change. The new rules will be changing as the technology provides new use cases, right? Wow. So I do not agree of regulations that are constrained. That is, you just adopt the regulation and the regulation stays there for years and years. That's not gonna work into AI. But the vision in Europe of moving forward, regulation and use cases, I think it will work. But for sure, we need rules, and that's going to happen. So no matter if the US is more or less regulated, okay. The fact is that Europe, Brazil, China, Canada, or Australia will be regulated, and that means that US companies selling products overseas will be also regulated. Okay, so I think that for compliance, for companies such as Perna, for companies such as Zertia, the years to come are going to be, and if we do things right, we're going to be very good years and very good business because customers, as Guru was mentioned before, will need help. This is not easy.
Yeah,
this is very complicated.
Yeah. Let me add on to Jose said and also answer a question from the audience from Andre. At a high level, if done well, I actually see, again, smart compliance, smart governance being a growth engine. Because what it does is it threads the needle between managing risks and building trust. As Jose said, if you have no regulations, if you have no constraints, actually adoption is not going to happen. People are not going to trust the systems. Who's going to buy a system not knowing anything about how that system was developed, what the inputs are, what the outputs are, what the system technology does? It's not going to happen. I often give this analogy with the automobile, which transformed 20th century, the world in the 20th century. It took many decades for the automobile to take off. And one of the main reasons was it took a while for people to trust this technology. Before then, it was a death trap. And so it took regulatory bodies to put speed limits and driver's license and traffic cops. And it took for the automobile to become safer. And all those happened together. And then the adoption took off. And so you're going to need something similar. You're going to need some smart compliance and rules and guardrails for the trust to develop and for the adoption to take off. So I think it's absolutely necessary. Now, you could absolutely, of course, have it be overregulated, and that's a concern too.
Yeah.
Right. That's a concern, and that will bog things down as well. And so I really do hope, just as there's innovators and entrepreneurs on the technology side, there's innovators and entrepreneurs on the regulatory side, taking feedback and making sure that they're not over-regulating. There was a question that was asked about the U.S.
Yes.
In the U.S., right? Exactly. There's no federal regulations. That is correct. But that doesn't mean there's going to be no regulations. There's going to be a lot of state regulations. There's going to be a lot of local regulations. And even with the new administration, there was a lot of notion that, oh, God, it's just going to be completely unregulated. Recently, the OMB, the OMB and the new administration came down with a set of requirements around AI governance for federal agencies that actually looks very similar to the previous administration's guidance. Mm-hmm. The tone is different. That's fine, right? The tone is a little bit more around innovation as opposed to regulation. That's fine. But if you actually parse down the different requirements, they look very similar. And I think that's an underlying acknowledgement that at the end of the day, you have to have some guardrails around this. Mm-hmm. And so Andres and others were asking, there will be regulations in the US. There will be more state level regulations. That only adds to the confusion. There will also be domain and industry regulations, right? So already things like healthcare, medical products, financial services, HR, they already have their own regulatory frameworks, and AI regulations will get embedded in those frameworks. So you're going to start to see a hodgepodge of how AI regulations come about. It's not going to be, just one federal guidance. That actually doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day, AI will get used and deployed in different ways in different instances. And so it really needs to happen at the more micro level in products, in industries, in domains, in geographies, et cetera. And over time, that's how it will happen.
Well, excellent. Thank you again so much, Mateo and Guru, for your time today and your insightful backgrounds on AI governance and ISO 42001 certifications. That's going to be a hotbed of emerging projects coming about globally and such. So wanted to just leave everyone a little bit of how to connect with Zertia as well as FairNow. So at Zertia, you can certainly go to zertia.ai, and you can or directly email jmmmateo@zertia.ai. And again, we'll be sending you guys information about how to stay connected and keep the conversation going. And then for FairNow, fairnow.ai. And then certainly reach out directly to Guru at fairnow.ai. Continue to ask questions and inquire more about governance and ISO 42001 certification and the partnership that we proudly announced formally today in this LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live meetings. So again, thank you all for your time and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Bennett. Thank you for the audience.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.